In the mid-1990s, we started following a group of 150 low-income youth and their parents and their siblings. What characterized these youth is that all were growing up in high-rise public housing in Baltimore, in fact, some of the most distressed communities in the United States. And since the mid-1990s, we've been following these young people who were 0 to 7 in the mid-1990s and watching as their lives have unfolded. We focused on many things in the years of studying these youth, but of greatest consequence for today's conference, of course, is their risky behavior. Interestingly enough, very few of the young women in our study had been, quote, caught up, the term they used to refer to engagement with street life, street crime, drug dealing in particular, but about half of the male youth had. Only about 30% of these youth were caught up in any serious way, and by 18, about half of that group had already desisted from criminal activity. Now, I should say that 10% couldn't be interviewed because they were already in prison and jail. But the bottom line of the stories of these young people is that despite very, very disadvantaged shared origins, they've had sharply diverging lives, and this is consistent, of course, with the work of criminologist Rob Sampson and John Laub. So, shared origins, diverging lives. Now, when young men in particular grow up in high-rise public housing and other disadvantaged neighborhoods in Baltimore, one of the nation's more dangerous and disadvantaged cities, they have to actively resist street culture all of the time. As I've said, many of our youth successfully do so, but they don't do so by default. They have to actively work to resist the street. One strategy they call being known for not being about the street, drawing a bright line, establishing to others by their behavior and conduct that they are not about illegal behavior. Now, often this strategy is practiced among those who are not caught up themselves, but have not fully set themselves apart from the street. So those young people are still at some danger. A second strategy is called withdrawal. This is often practiced by older youth, especially those who have been caught up at one time, but have since desisted. This is often a very costly strategy. Marcus, for example, one of our youth growing up in Pimlico, must stay in his bedroom almost all the time to avoid former associates who he engaged in street crime with. When he does leave his room, he often goes to public places like Lexington Market or the Inner Harbor. He really can't hang out in the neighborhood. And the only way he can continue to desist and pursue what he envisions as a career in the U.S. Navy is really to almost live under house arrest all of the time, self-imposed, of course. For those youth who are most successful at resisting the street, they often adopt something else. They often say they found a way to be about something else. Now, for Bob from the West Side, a love of poetry in youth. He was in love with Shakespeare, read Shakespeare sonnets on the bus on the way to junior high school. Led to an identity as a, quote, total loner. Later, he turned on to the television and saw something totally amazing that changed his life. It was the character Pokemon. And he has since developed an avid love for and passion for Japanese anime. He, along with a group of friends in high school, also began adopting goth attire, which is very confrontational to street culture in Baltimore, as a way to set himself apart. So he dresses in black and with chains to say to the street dealers, "I'm not about you." Gary purchased a vintage Cadillac. He detailed this Cadillac. It's beautiful, sitting in front of his small house in Hamilton. It shines with perfection. It's all decked out with the leather interior, and he uses this vintage Cadillac to transport himself between the worlds of being a home health aide at a nursing home in the eastern suburbs and the west side of Baltimore, where many of his childhood friends still live, a very dangerous neighborhood that's almost a police state because of the high rate of criminal activity here. What Gary is about is becoming an expert in the health field. Sure, he's starting only as a CNA, but eventually he wants to become a medical assistant and then perhaps a physical therapist. And he's been motivated in this desire by his need to help his aging father and his caring for the man who's been so important in his life. Tony from Franklintown had an internship as a senior in high school and a brief encounter with the pharmacy school here in town made him think that this could be a career goal. And so he's passionate about pharmacy. In fact, on his refrigerator is a list of the prerequisites he needs to complete in order to get into the pharmacy program at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where he has been accepted. And he crosses off each prerequisite with care, dreaming about the day he'll finally actually enroll in UMBC and pursue his dream. All of these young men have developed something else they're going to be about. Bob says, I wasn't going to be that statistic, one of the percentile of young men between the ages of 18 and 25 who's going to be a father, or in and out of jail, or unemployed, or uneducated. I was going to be in the percentile of young men who actually grew up to be something, young men who have a legitimate job, are competent fathers, who are things that I never had. Dressing like this, and it indicates his dress, allows me to stand out because I'm different. When someone sees you dressed like that, people in my neighborhood, it was definitely protection, like, this is me. I'm not that. So when we look at those youth who have developed this being about something else, this alternative activity that seems, this alternative identity that seems to make them so successful at resisting the streets, they point to mentors, teachers, pastors, parents, and siblings who've helped them find the way, who've helped them connect with this alternative identity. They also point to youth development programs, internships like Tony's, Afrocentric theater like Bob, church youth groups, arts programs. The overall theme of what we've learned from these young people in Baltimore in terms of risky behavior is they tend not to engage or to desist when they have something to lose, whether that outcome is crime, early and unplanned childbearing, employment, earnings, marriage, or custodial parenthood. Now, you may say a study like this is not causal. That's true. But there's intriguing evidence from randomized controlled trials that investing in youth, helping them to be about something else, is worth investing in. After-school programs for youth with service learning focus have shown very large impacts, for example, on early and unplanned childbearing. The Carrera program in New York has shown that youth who are engaged in high-quality after-school program with a service learning component, being about something else, have less sex, use more contraception, and show up to a 55 percentage point reduction in teen pregnancy. Career academies, which are small learning communities focused around a vocational goal that connect youth with employers and involve them in relationships with caring teachers, have shown large impacts on men. We see a $30,000 real earnings advantage over 8 years' time between experimentals and controls, a 9 percentage point increase in marriage, and a 12 percentage point increase in custodial parenthood. Both of these kinds of programs foster the sense that youth are about something. So we need to help young people be about something else if we want to prevent crime and early pregnancy, but also if we want to promote positive impacts in employment and family. This evidence, along with the strong empirical evidence from the Becoming a Man demonstration in Chicago, directed by Jens Ludwig, a program that had huge impacts on future offending and high school graduation, should convince us that investing in disadvantaged teens matters and can affect key decisions that alter the life course. Thank you.